we've got some Courtland Sutton trade rumors and buzz out there after the NFL draft. Now, quick disclaimer, I too am exhausted when it comes to the somewhat never-ending Sutton trade rumors going back all the way 2 off seasons ago here, but following the NFL draft, I've seen a lot of other teams, specifically the Dallas Cowboys, poke around Sutton's availability and the idea of acquiring him from Denver because he is entering the final year of his contract, and the Broncos took a wide receiver in round 3 who has a lot of similarities to Sutton's game. I think I called him the Kirkland version of Courtland Sutton. So, with that in mind, I could see why other teams are poking around in terms of Sutton's availability and why Denver might be a little bit more receptive to a trade given his contract situation and the fact that Pat Bryant was their pick at 74 in the draft. Similar to Sutton in size, I mean, maybe not quite as big, but 6'2", 204 pounds, so a relatively big target. He was a multi-year starter for the Fighting Illini, second team All-Big Ten in 2024. The thing you got to know about Bryant is he adjusts well to catches. He's got a nice wide catch radius, and when he gets the ball in his hands, he doesn't have cinder block for feet. He doesn't have incredible long speed, but he can definitely do some damage in the open field. Comes off a 984-yard season, 10 touchdowns, just 1 drop off of 78 targets and 54 receptions. Initially, I was confused by the pick, perplexed, if you will. Just didn't see Pat Bryant going in round 3. Saw him go in round 5 for a lot of mock drafts, but this is a clear-cut example of Denver doesn't care what Mel Kiper's big board or Dane Brugler's big board had to say. They're going to go off their gut. They're going to go off their eye test and their own evaluation, and they're going to block out all the outside noise, which I don't hate that idea. I've put a couple things out there that I'd say I want on my tombstone, and one of them is when the college football season ends, if I were to be an NFL GM or an NFL owner, I would take 2 or 3 scouts and ship them to an island in the southern Atlantic Ocean. And I'd keep them there until a day before the NFL draft and then bring them back and go, tell us what you think of this draft class. Because I want to freeze them and preserve their thoughts before they all get muddied with combine interviews and 40-yard dashes and just silly stories that come up when all the games have already been played, and yet somehow we forget the most important thing when it comes to a player evaluation. The tape, what they did in the fall when they were playing football. Not, hey, what was their 3-cone drill at Lucas Oil in February? For some reason, we allow that to become bigger than what they did in October at home against Ohio State with 2 minutes to go in a tied ball game. So I am okay and respect when teams go with, this is our guy because we didn't let outside noise filter into our evaluations. I like the idea of teams going, to the beat of their own drummer to a degree. Sure, a little bit of outside noise, but more like external thoughts is not a bad thing. But also, hey, not letting PFF mock draft simulator dictate your draft. Now, I did come across this snippet from an article from Mike Silver at The Athletic. If you want a little bit more confirmation that this pick was a good one, you'll either love this or you'll be terrified by it. But this is Liam Cohn, the Jags head coach, and he talked about really wanting to get RJ Harvey and Pat Bryant, and Denver took both those players from Jacksonville. So if you are searching for confirmation bias of this being a good pick because another team wanted those guys, may I interest you in the Jacksonville Jaguars? On one hand, that sounds like a pretty good thing. On the other hand, is it good if the Jags wanted them? Because that's not a very good track record. May not be a bad idea to pursue players the Jags are not pursuing because they have a horrible track record. But they've got a new head coach and GM, so things could be very, very different. But the reason why we're talking about Courtland Sutton today is with Pat Bryant being a third-round draft pick and Sutton entering that final year of his contract, if a team makes an offer that Denver deems fair, now that they have a receiver on the roster from day 2 of the draft, are they more receptive and more open to making a trade? Whereas maybe before they could get an offer that was above market, but they go, we can't give up Sutton. even if you are willing to give us something a little bit more than what we valued him at, if we lose Sutton, we've got nobody. We've got Devon Vele, Troy Franklin, and Marvin Mims, 3 young, somewhat inexperienced and unknown up-and-coming receivers. But maybe with a third rounder and Pat Bryant, the Broncos go, hey, we actually could manage without Sutton. And so let's kick the tires on a trade, or let's pick up the phone on a trade. Whereas earlier, it was a non-starter because they didn't have anyone there. And there are some good free agent receivers out there. So if they really want to get, adventurous, they could trade Sutton and then sign Amari Cooper and go, what's better? Courtland Sutton, last year of his deal, we don't want to extend him, or a third-round pick from Dallas next year and Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore. I think it's the first one still, because I don't think you're going to get a third. And I think Courtland Sutton is playing maybe the best football of his NFL career right now, and I don't want to rock the boat a little bit when it comes to Bo Nix's development. So I don't think, and this has been, the story of the last 2 years, I don't believe Courtland Sutton will be traded, but I believe there will be inquiries with the addition of Pat Bryant and Sutton on the final year of his contract. The only way I really see a trade going down is if contract negotiation talks go south. If Sutton has a number in mind, Denver's not even in that same zip code, and Sutton holds out, and a team calls and says, hey, can we talk to his agent? Can we tell them what we'd give him in a contract? And we'll offer you a third-round pick for him. At that point, the Broncos might go, well, he's not showing up to camp. And this is obviously all hypothetical in the future, but he's not showing up to camp here. We got a good offer on the table. We've got a third-round pick who we think could fill that role nicely. This isn't really what we thought we'd get to at this stage, but a lot of times you see contract negotiations go south, and then a trade is conceived out of it, and it's not what anyone really intended for at the beginning, but it's the end result. Now, let's talk about what that negotiation could look like and what Sutton could be looking for in terms of dollars and cents. He's not going to get top 10 highest paid wide receiver money, and I don't think he's asking for that. But I'm just throwing it out there as a starting point, a reference point for what that could look like. Right now, Sutton is the 24th highest paid receiver in football. My gut tells me he wants that to get down towards around 17 to 20. I would like to think he knows at 29 he's not going to get a huge payday, but Calvin Ridley got a big payday, and he's the same. He's older than Courtland Sutton. So maybe he does push for the Calvin Ridley contract. I think he's probably pushing more so for the Mike Evans contract. And we'll look at what that number looks like in just a second. But Jeudy Barron, the first-round pick by Denver, his jersey is available for pre-sale at chatsports.com/Barron. So if you want to get a brand new jersey and you want to have a unique jersey, because everyone's going to have by next season a Bo Nix jersey or a Pat Surtain jersey. But if you want to stand out a little bit and you want to be, a bit of a head turner, get a Barron jersey. I put this link in the comment section down below along with the description of the video. So here's my stab at what a Sutton contract extension could look like. 3 years, he's 29, he'll turn 30 in October, $63 million. That's an average of $21 million a season. That makes him the 20th highest paid receiver in football. Jumps up a handful of spots. Something wild, right? It's not like Denver is all of a sudden sinking top 10, top 15 money into him. And for Sutton, at 29 years old, he gets $63 million. Let's say 2/3 of that is guaranteed. Let's say $40 million guaranteed. So it's a 2-year, $40 million contract. Not too shabby for a 29-year-old. That would be his third deal with the Broncos, including his rookie contract. Yeah, I think that could be something that both parties would be interested in. Unless Denver has the heebie-jeebies about giving $40 million to a near 30-year-old wide receiver, given that Amari Cooper was 29 years old last offseason, turned 30 in June, and he fell off a cliff. So we're going to look at, is it real, that 30-year-old mark for receivers? It is for running backs, not so much for wide receivers. And before we get to that, I do want you guys to weigh in at this point here because I blabbered for long enough. Should Denver extend Courtland Sutton? Give me a yes or give me a no. I am down for it. I am choosing to be optimistic. I'm choosing to believe that Courtland is not going to fall off a cliff. Could be wrong. It would be an expensive, mistake to make here, but there's a decent amount of track record out there that just because you're 30 doesn't mean you're no longer productive. Now, Courtland Sutton, I think, can look at company like last year Davante Adams, who at 32 years old had over 1,000 yards in a bad Jets and Raiders offense. Calvin Ridley, with Will Levis throwing to the other team more than his team, putting up 1,000 yards. Mike Evans, Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen, all guys 30 and over, all had, not as good as they once were, but all had pretty good seasons. So, yeah, $20 million definitely sounds a little bit on the richer end here, but if it means that Bo Nix continues to have his number one target going into year 2, a big year for him to not have a sophomore slump like C.J. Stroud, I'm willing to sink some of Walton Penner's money into that. All right, that will do it for us on today's episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you haven't yet, scroll on down, click that subscribe button, and I'll see everyone next time.